Here. Okay, I think that's good.
All right.
There we go. It is recording, right?
Mm-hmm.
How can you even tell?
It's got a little like flashing red button up there in the corner for me.
Okay, I'm gonna trust you. All right, great. So yeah, like I love how the texture of the main is flat. And I'm guessing that looks like it's construction paper or something.
Yeah, it's textured paper.
Nice. Yeah. So like using texture as a way to make contrast is a really cool way to do it. And can be used in conjunction with all the other ways of making contrast as well, which is great. However, you are still falling into the whole value issue. The main is good. That's like clear. It's just the rest of it is a little bit of the same value. So like that's what I want to mostly work on. That was the most immediate thing to me, at least. That was like, yeah. And again, it's like it's one of those things where it's really difficult to fix once you've done the painting traditionally, because it's, well, I guess you could darken things, but the thing is, like, you want, like, this is arguably your lightest value up here.
Mm-hmm.
Color different. Yeah, this is like your lightest value, second to maybe these, when really, like, I feel like your lightest value should definitely be these things. Like
Yeah.
fireworks, like that's just based on the story you told me, especially. Like I feel like that would be best. So let's see. There's many ways that we could go about doing this. I'm gonna try. I'll isolate the foreground. Um, yeah, so this is the trick of it, is once I have the masks, then I need to remember which ones they are and how to use them. So basically, like, the cool thing about the mask is you can add and subtract them. So when I select this line, like holding control and clicking in the picture of the beast, I can add another selection to that. So I know that this one is like my foreground one. And so if I hold control and click in that, it's just going to select that one instead. But I want to select it as well as. So to do that, you do control and then shift, and then you get that little plus marker, and then you click in that. And then this adds everything to the selection. So basically, if I wanted to make it a layer that's just affecting, oh shoot, yeah. So this is just affecting all this. So it's the foreground and the beast. So I'm just going to reverse that because I want to affect the opposite of that. I want it to affect only, and to reverse, you just control I. It's very easy. Same with painting in Photoshop. If you want to inverse the color, just control I. So I want to only affect the background basically. And I don't want to affect the fireworks. So I'm just going to do control and click in the first firework, control shift, and then click in the second one, and then hold alt, go to this mask. They're still selected, and then I'm just going to fill them with black so that they're also not going to be affected. So that's like the cool thing about masks, is that you can sort of add whatever ones you want to each layer to make it like each layer only affects certain things basically. So what could I do here? I guess the first thing I'm going to do is just do a multiply layer and just start to darken things a little bit. Come on. I don't know what color exactly. Maybe like a blue or a purple or something. Okay, that's a bit too much. Well, maybe I'll just try this. Actually, what happens if I fill it? Okay, so I'm just going to fill it for the sake of the example. So already, if you check our little value check, they're standing out much more. So that's already, it's working a bit better. What would be even better now is to have, like, you want a bit of a glow coming from the fireworks, and there are a lot of light, so the whole center area would definitely be more lit. So what I'm going to do is just go into this. I'm basically going to be only working in this mask layer by clicking on it there. I'll still see this layer, and then just create, like, I'm just revealing. So in the mask, it's going to look like this basically. I'm just using the gradient to, like, carve out certain aspects of the mask that I actually want to have seen here. So something like this kind of still keeps the interest in that area. So it's still, yeah, it's still working well. Another cool thing that you cool do is I'm going to make a new layer with just this line in it now. So it's just this. Okay, wait. Is it a lion? I can't remember what he said.
It's just like a monster beast.
Monster beast. Okay, sounds good. So yeah, I'm going to darken this guy initially. Let's see. Because yeah, like you said, the values are just like the horns are, I like could hardly see that the horns existed. Immediately now, I just filled it with the same kind of dark purple color, just for now. They're still, like, they're much more apparent now. And I think I'm actually gonna make another layer for just the foreground and actually do the same for that. Let's see what's gonna happen here. Oh. Okay, so now this is too dark. Okay, here we go. And basically what I want to do now, so I've darkened everything. Everything, I feel like it's a night scene, it should be pretty dark. However, I really want to create like a nice little, very simple rim highlight on both the cliff and the beast. So I'll do the cliff first. So maybe a screen layer or something. And what I would normally do actually when I'm making a highlight is look at the color that is being emitted. So it's like a yellow and red here. So I'll try and kind of stick within that. Actually, I might even do a linear gradient. So this is weird right now, but I'm just going to get rid of the line in it. There we go. So now it's basically only affecting the foreground area. And it's too strong over here. I don't like. Oops. This is too much. And then the cool thing is then you could sort of carve out, use the brush and just like carve out actual pieces of like the rock, start to like define where is the rock and where isn't. There's always texture in rocks and stuff, so you want to kind of put some of that in. But again, you got to be careful with texture because it's gonna pull the eye towards it probably. Unless everything's textured, then it does the opposite. Makes it. I was in Victoria for Christmas in Canada, and I went to an art gallery, and there was this famous wildlife painter named Robert Bateman. Do you know Robert Bateman? Have you heard of him? He does like really big oil paintings and acrylic paintings of wildlife. And it's like great. It's like really realistic, looks like awesome, very dramatic, but like everything has the same texture. Everything is like in full focus. And it's like, that drives me nuts because like you need to kind of specify like what we should be looking at. And texture is like is a very good way to do that. Just gonna bring a little bit back. All right, so we've got our highlight on the rocks. If you wanted to, you could even do some highlights that are kind of like more ready, the red light too. But now I'm gonna go to the lion, make a highlight on the lion now. And yeah, maybe I'll make it a little bit more red. I'm gonna fix this after because I want it to just touch certain areas. I'm also gonna dial it back so that much more of your original color was maintained. I'm just doing the darkness initially to like set up the contrast basically. Also keep in mind that like, I like to really have things pronounced. You might not like it as pronounced as I do. That's like totally a matter of preference and there's many ways to do it. So always keep that in mind whenever I'm taking a look at your work. Okay, so I just want to get the initial kind of highlight and then I'm gonna go into this layer, which you can see here. And I'm just gonna basically paint out areas where it's not going to be affecting. For example, like I don't want it to be around the whole tail because some of the tail is going to be in shadow, just as a result of being facing away from the light. So it's going to be something like this. But you'll still get like a nice little rim light from the distance. And these horns are going to create like their own, you'll see something like this. In the hair, this is where you'll see some of that hair texture come in. And even the back of the head. See, it's kind of like an almost cheap way to get like a stronger contrast. Just gonna do a bit of a fade here with the brush, so it's not so stark. See, basically now, ooh, see, that's one of those illusions where like it seemed like it was brighter than it was, when really, like if you color selected this is like a, oh, that's, oh yeah. Why is it not getting the right one? Oh, because I'm in the, no, that's weird. I don't know. Oh yeah, so it's getting like a 55–60% gray. So like if you want to, you could bring that up much more. But really, like it still stands out. And if you, yeah, you could just, how would I do this? Probably just, ooh, it'd be nice to actually get some of that color, like in here from the firework. Maybe brighten it a little bit, and then have some of that coming in various places, especially like on the head. Plus, this is like quite light, so then you're getting, yeah, so that's standing out much more, even from just the values. But of course, another way to do this would be to just go back to this background layer. What is this one again? So that's, oh, we want this one. See, this is where I'm getting confused in my layers again. Sometimes what I do, instead of making a permanent mask on a layer, which kind of constricts you to it, I'll just select the lion, and instead of like, I normally would just click mask and then that's set on the layer forever, I'll just keep this as it is right now, and then I'll start adjusting it. So what I want to do is affect the background. So I'm just going to do a control inverse of that selection, and then get that color again down here, or a darker color maybe. And then create even more darkness behind that face to make it stand out even better. And you could also like even just cut out some of the trees around here. Actually, and minus. So yeah, there now it's going to be standing out quite a bit. So you can easily, I always zoom out, by the way, just to make sure that it reads even as a thumbnail, because if your image reads as a thumbnail, you're in a really good place. Like you really want to be able to like look at it from afar and be like, wow, like I can see exactly what I'm supposed to look at in this image. So this is very dark. Again, I'm gonna like, I think I'm gonna tone these layers down a little bit so that they're not too intense. This isn't like Hollywood. We don't need to have full brightness and full darkness. The darkness behind the head is kind of nice, that piece there, but I'm gonna make that more of a multiply and then turn it down. The nice thing about this, of course, is I can turn it up and down whenever I want. So if I later change that, I want to change the darkness, make it a little bit lighter and not as bold, then I can always turn that down. So the fireworks, let's see here. So what I'm going to actually do is just select both of those fireworks. You can do a Control-Shift-C and Control-Shift-V, so that I have a new layer that's basically just these fireworks. And I want to try something just for the effect of it. So you can do this thing where you double click on the layer and you affect some of the attributes of the whole layer. And once you have this set, I mean, you can turn it off, but it's pretty much set on the layer. So I just want to see what it looks like. I'm very like careful with glows because some artwork is very glowy, but there are times when it just calls for a glow. So I'm just gonna try it, just to get a bit of like a fireworky kind of effect. Although I really like the glitter, like the glittery kind of texture that you have already. That's really great. Yeah, see, that's like way too intense. Just like a little subtle something. Might even make the size smaller. I don't know if that's even, yeah, it does bring it out a little bit. It depends if you want that effect, but that just makes it feel a little bit more like light and a little bit less like a solid object. But I do like how graphic it is. Like I was thinking of, you know, if it was a real kind of firework thing, you'd probably have little bits of it trailing off in places. But I was like, I don't know. I kind of like how graphic it is in a way. So that's something that you could think about if you really want to hammer home that it is like a firework. But what you've done is also works. What would I just do? I love the tops of the houses too. I almost want to like bring that out more. I also felt like maybe there would be a bit more people, like
Okay.
just, I don't know, just a little bit more populated. I'm kind of thinking of like the end of Mulan, where they're all gathered around the Emperor's chambers and stuff. There's just so many people. It'll help feel a little bit more epic if you kind of had more people kind of populated. I love this tool. Good old stamp. And even like the odd one here and there elsewhere. Oh, also have some, this you could actually probably still do in your, is this watercolor?
It's gouache, yeah.
Oh, gouache, awesome. So this you probably could still do with your current gouache. You could just get houses, the sides of the houses that are going to be in shadow, and maybe give them a little bit, even though the light is coming from above. So basically you're only going to get the shadow that's cast from that little lip from the roof. But this is definitely going to look good, I can tell. In this case, it might be more like this. Same with this one. I always just kind of think about it. Honestly, there's no real, I mean, there is a mathematical way you can figure out how shadows would look, but I just look at the light and I'm like, okay, that's good enough. Probably in this direction. This will just help to like make it feel very ground, like because when there's no shadow cast, things tend to kind of look like they're floating in space a little bit. So you have to be kind of careful with that. These ones actually might have longer shadows because they're getting a bit further away from the firework. That's generally the idea, is that the further away something is from the light, the more of a like longer shadow is going to be cast. So I'm probably just going to get that same purple kind of color, something like this. Yeah, see how it feels a little bit more grounded now? With that extra like darkness. And then it further cements the contrast and area of interest in that area. Also, this is a thing that I just realized. So I made this highlight over here. This piece over here looks weird because it's like it's not adding anything and it doesn't need to be there. Do you see why? It's kind of just like, it kind of looks like I'm supposed to look at something over there, but I don't know. Oops. It just feels like kind of out of place. So I'm just going to knock that back a little bit. Holy. Oh, that's why. Nope. can still have a little bit, but very, very minor compared to
Mhm.
before. Oh, and so I also noticed that you have a tangent. You have a tangent up in this corner over here. See that the mountain is like just perfectly resting. Oh, my internet connection is unstable. I hope that's not the case. The mounting is just perfectly touching the top of the composition here. So whenever possible, try not to do that unless you are doing that for a particular purpose. But it's very rare that you want to have something, especially a mountain, because it's like an arrow, which kind of like takes you out of it. If anything, like you could have like mountains that were kind of like pushing inwards a little bit, or like that kind of like overall start to kind of point the attention this way. But so what I don't know, it's tricky. I would just probably lower it so it's less like exactly at that corner. What that basically does is it makes your eye I don't know, it does this weird thing where it kind of makes people uncomfortable. They're just like, something feels weird, but I'm not sure what it is. That's like tangents. Often it's like when there's like a bird or something in the background and the bird is flying far away, but it's like just perfectly resting on this tail or something. And it's like, whoa, what the heck is that? Is that supposed to be like on the tail or, but no, it's like, it's in the distance. Or like somebody's hand in the distance will like perfectly line up with like the edge of this nose or something, and it'll just create like a weird compositional issue that you can avoid most of the time pretty easily. So just something to keep in mind. Speaking of the mountains,
Mhm.
they could actually be used very effectively by where's my mountain mask? Here they are. Actually, I'm not going to create a mask. And I want to take away the tail from the selection. Take away the lion, and then I've just got the mountains. So I think they could be lit a little bit, maybe. I mean, that's a bit of a stretch, but it's kind of for the sake of the drama of the scene. I'm just gonna maybe take some of this color, this nice warm color down here, and actually it's a bit saturated. It would probably be, especially since it's so far back, the further back you are, the less saturated colors are going to be. So I'm gonna take this color, which is pretty saturated, and bring it way down, maybe like here, and down a little bit too. So it's a little bit duller because it is off in the distance. Just something like that. And I always make it more intense than I want it to be so that I can just adjust the layer so that if I ever wanted to change it, I could just bring it down, which I think I will a little bit. So the cool thing about this kind of thing, this is kind of minor, but the way that this works, since the light, it kind of creates like this overall light thing that's happening, and it's kind of making your eye look that direction, which again forms another arrow to bring your eye back into the composition, which is great. You want to keep, you don't want them to stop looking at the image. You want to try to get them to like look at it for as long as possible. That's generally the idea of composition and painting. So let's just do a little check here of how it looks from the beginning. So yeah, you're working with like kind of, even though the sky probably felt dark to you, it's like you could darken it quite a bit, which is good because you can still do that with the painting by layering the paint. So it's not at a point where you can't change things. But yeah, this is pretty dark, and I would probably lighten the forest more. Let's try to do that. I have a mask for the forest too. This area. I don't want the lion or the foreground to be in it, or the fireworks, or the clearing. This is just the forest. I'm gonna start naming my layers because it's getting crazy. So again, with that same idea of the light affecting all the colors around it, I'm just gonna like get some of the highlight colors and start casting light around here. Because of those lights are colored, especially you'll get those color, the effect on them are going to be very apparent everywhere. Those colors going to be seen in all the other things as well. I'm going to try to do like an overlay or something just so that it doesn't really affect the brightness at all. Let's see. kind of nice and dull, but I'm just trying different blending modes. Kind of like that one almost, but what I would do then is just still in the mask, or just even erasing from the image, just start to pick out the shadows of the trees a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Just occasionally, and eventually you'll get kind of like, these will probably all be dark back here. It's gonna be little individual trees. These ones at the back could probably be pretty darkened, because that's way far back in the distance. And I really want to maintain the dark color opposing that face, so that the face stands out as much as possible. So even though this light might travel a bit farther, for the sake of the composition, I'm going to make it so that the face is opposite of that darker. Yeah. So just a bit more. Actually, I do like some of the green that you had, so I'm just going to dial this layer down a little bit. So it's pretty subtle. Still maintaining a lot of that nice green. Bring it down a bit more. It's funny when you start like bring the layer all the way down, and then you get to 0 and you're like, actually it was better before. Which is sometimes the case. Sometimes I like make adjustments and I'm like, nope, it was better way back then. But yeah, just a little bit of highlight there is nice. So it's pretty good, and now we'll do a value check again just to make sure. So yeah, I think this keeps the attention pretty well. I still want the beast to stand out more though. And I think how I'm going to do this is actually by affecting that shadow. I kind of want this to be darker. I might duplicate this layer. Oh, wrong layer. Duplicate this layer, and then just turn it off in certain areas, because I like the color that you had, so I want to try to. Oh. Okay. Oop. So I'm just gonna like bring some of that color back, so that you still have a good variation. Oh yeah, shoot, that pattern up here, I want that to remain too. The only trick is that it's kind of fighting with the fireworks. What I might have done is, where is it? So I might have, oh shoot, I didn't select the whole tail originally. Oh wait, yes I did. So I might have, and this is kind of tricky to work with. It's kind of hard to adjust now, but I might have just kind of moved the tail out of the way of the fireworks or something, so that it occupies its own space, kind of like that. The texture is going to be different, obviously, than that. Just this is a really patchy fix, but just to get the. So this way, the fireworks sort of maintain their own space without the tail interfering with it.
Mm-hmm.
I also kind of feel like maybe it'd be nice to give the tail a little bit more highlight even at this point. Oh, I see what's going on. Okay. Here it is. But I don't want to get rid of the pattern either, because the pattern is really nice. Yeah. Those mountains in the background also could probably be, well, it's hard to say. Because you might, the sky, you could do some stars or something to bring in some like other detail. I'm just trying to think if the mountains would be dull. Yeah, I feel like they would be maybe a bit darker just because it's like it's nighttime, and often like you'll have this effect where you can see the silhouettes of like everything, trees, buildings, but they're all like very dark, even though the sky is still like, you know, not too dark yet. It's still fairly bright, but everything else is in silhouette. So I feel like the mountains might be fairly dark back there. But then I'm going to turn this down a bunch. Yeah, I'm not sure. It's hard to say. And I kind of want to brighten the sky a little bit, or do something with the sky. The sky feels a little bit flat. It either needs some stars or clouds or something. So let's see. Okay. Not sure exactly what would be good to do with it. I mean, maybe just try to brighten it up a little bit or something. Wow, way too intense. Yeah, see, this maintains a little bit more the nice colors you had before. And then this brings out like the mountains a little bit more if you have some light behind. You just don't want to get too intense with it. I'm going to bring this layer down a lot. And yeah, like consider having some stars too. In fact, I have the perfect perfect brush for this. Let's see. Depends if you want the starry kind of effect, but it's something to consider. And then I usually delete a whole bunch of these because they're too spattery. Yeah. Yeah, it's feeling quite a bit different. It's still, I feel like the foreground light that I created is too intense because it's competing with the line, and you don't want it to compete with the line. It should be like a secondary thing. In fact, if there ever was an instance where like I had to choose like, well, obviously there's going to be light on these rocks, but if it's going to compete with something else in the image, just get rid of it. So like that is an easy solution. I feel like there might be a kind of halfway point where I can turn this layer down to maybe like 50 of what it is normally. Maybe even, well, yeah, that's pretty good. So it's still there. It still has some highlight, but it's pretty, now the beast is really much more in focus. And I still want to create more of a highlight on the beast, I think. So I'm just going to do a quick other one of this. But I might make it a bit brighter. I'm not so concerned with the color I'm getting from it. I'm mostly looking at the value. The color I can change after. Well, not with traditional painting, but in my case. So that's like, I think that's basically the value I'm looking for. So if I turn that on, yeah, this is very strong now. See, before that I was kind of losing the middle, but now it's like it's very prominent. And I'm still gonna carve out these guys. Oh shoot, need my brush. Yeah, I'm still gonna get the shadow from these so that they're nice and vivid. And I would also add a little bit of texture, maybe. Consider having some, like, even if it's just in your painting. All of this it's paper in your case, so don't worry about that. I'm just saying if you did have the flexibility to you know, add a bit of detail, you could always like have a little bit more strands or something like that, if it works, if it's the kind of style that works for the image. But definitely not. It's a stylistic thing. Some styles have like no fur detail. It's just like a big clump. So it's really important that you work within what you're actually trying to make. I was also just thinking you could maybe have a like an extreme highlight on some of the roofs. It depends what they're made of. If they're anything remotely metal or shiny, you'll probably get like a very strong highlight on some edges. It's hard to say. Like I'm thinking of like tin roofs, but I don't know. They're probably not really metal. Yeah, it's hard to say what else to do here. I mean, there's just detail kind of things. Like generally, like things in the foreground are more detailed than things in the background. So that's something to keep in mind. So that's why I added some fur. And you might also want to like, yeah, just carve out some like nice rock shapes here. And like have some nice flat areas and some areas that have that nice texture, kind of darkening the foreground so that the sky will stand out even more. And also, like, considering it's grassy in the forest area, I'm guessing there's going to be some form of grass around him. So that might even just be very, very subtle, like something like this. Just like some little bushes or something, but it might not be entirely rocky. There might be at least some small indications of grass here. It's up to you, though. Or moss, or just a little bit more detail on. Oh, this is a great moss color. Something like that. And I'm keeping the values pretty similar. So like if I turn the black and white on, they're not standing out that much because you really don't want to make it fight with anything. I just want them to be there as like a little bit more detail than what you're getting. I really like adding some kind of clouds. The reason being is clouds are an awesome way to, if you're ever having lines that are bringing something out, like for example, this horn here is kind of pointing off in this direction, but you could also see it as the entrance in. It's just that generally, at least like in Western society, you read from left to right. And so typically when we look at a piece of art, it's that same kind of motion with your eyes. You're going from left to right. So often artists will like start on the left-hand side and and then you kind of end through the right side. So in this case, this might be a way for them to leave. So you might want to be careful of that. So what I often do is clouds are a great compositional device, just like trees, grass, rocks. Like you don't want to think of anything as just a way to fill out the environment. You want each thing to be contributing to the composition. So like a cloud, although just a cloud, could also be an awesome way to like kind of lead the viewer's eye back into it, for example. Like maybe you've got something like this that like it's behind the horn, but compositionally kind of feels like it's a part of the horn.
There actually is a cloud behind it, but
Oh shoot, I see it.
buried under.
Totally. That's funny. I'm using it as like, I'm changing the shape just so that it's kind of swirling around, because this way it's like catching it and then bringing it back kind of. But yeah, great. You did have some clouds, right on. I'm just gonna. So I just wanted some kind of random color, because now I'm just going to create, and also clouds are often, depending on the kind of cloud, they reflect light as well, which is another great thing, because that means we can just create nice highlights on clouds. And look, suddenly we have a new edge in the composition. So it's like, that's a bit too obvious. It's like very clear that I'm using it to catch the horn. Some art nerds will definitely catch you on stuff like that, when it's just like too convenient, when there's like somebody pointing, you know, like it's like someone pointing this direction, and then there's like perfectly across from that hand is something that catches it and then brings it around. If it's like too obvious like that, sometimes people will be like, all right, that's too overt. You need to be a little bit more subtle than that. That's why like things like clouds and tree branches and anything that's kind of somewhat random that you get to choose yourself, use it as a way to like mess and manipulate the composition to work for you. That's why drawing nature is great, because like there's just so much variety and diversity that you can get away with a lot. Like it's very rare when somebody will be able to be like, oh, that cloud doesn't really look like a cloud, or that tree looks like it's a little bit too round, and you know, like it's very rarely criticized for that. So you can be as creative as you want, basically. So in this case, I'm just using it to kind of catch your eye and stay back in the same composition, so that now with this, you're kind of having more of like this kind of effect happen, where you're like, oh, there's no way to get out of this. It's like perfectly, set up. And yeah, do you see what I meant with the highlight class? I think I might have been unclear about that. Of just like how because anything that's reflective or like has some sense of like catching light, like a cloud, suddenly you have a new value. So basically when I turn this black and white thing on, you have this new edge here that like wasn't here. Whereas like if it's something very matte, like rubber or something, rubber doesn't really do much with light. It disperses it across it, versus like something shiny that like will have a very sharp edge. So something shiny will give you that sharp edge, and that edge is going to point to something, because it's going to be contrasting with whatever it's against. Whereas rubber, kind of like the light diffuses across all of it, so it's not much of a compositional device unless it's a value difference. But anyways, too much theory, Garth. Yeah, so in this case, I'm just using it to bring another highlight into it in a somewhat cheesy way. Like another thing would be like to make a highlight on this lake. This would be another fairly obvious one that you could just, oh, 1 second. So this there's no real reason I would do this, but another thing that I could do if I needed to like get the viewer's eye to like travel back, is I could do something like this, like create some kind of shape in this lake and be like, okay, this is going to be my reflection. So I'm going to get that color, bring it into the lake a little bit. And you know, that could pass. Like it is water. It's going to be fairly reflective. And what this does is it takes the eye and moves it back in this direction. So this doesn't really work for us. There's no real purpose for that. But that's something that you could do. So you always want to look for things like that, where like there's like instances in the nature and composition that you've drawn that allow you to like sort of move and manipulate the viewer's eye around a bunch. That's awesome. And once you kind of get it, you get the sense that like, okay, so these values are contributing to how people are looking at my artwork, and so do the, like, it's very powerful. It's like really awesome once you get a real hang of that whole composition thing. But there's so many books on compositions, it's crazy. So I'm trying to condense like as much as I know into a short span of time. It'd be nice to see a little bit more like anatomy in the animal, but again, that's one of those things that takes some knowledge, like just the scapula, and there's a bit of a bone here from the pelvis, and just little things that you might see a little bit of, but really what that's going to look like in your drawing is just a very slight form like this, or like something back here. So it's like just subtle little things like that, just a little bit more detail in certain areas, even like creases occasionally, something like that. I don't know what it's made of, but maybe some tuft of hair around the horns, I'm not sure. Something like that, just to bring a little bit more detail, because then you have even more emphasis on the foreground, the more detail that it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. Great image. I really like how you've made a very clear foreground, middle ground, and background too, by the way. That's awesome. Like the lion is very engaging. He's a very engaging shape. So that was really well done. And it does help the tail is interesting, and it helps keep the interest inside the composition. Wow, I've darkened it a lot. I regret some of that. I think I would pull that back a bit.
Okay.
But yeah, I didn't realize I darkened it so much. I would keep the darkness on the main character, but this is the area that I wanted to pull back a bit. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you want some light, obviously. Yeah. Oh shoot, we're at 6. Wow, that was quick. Do we have a lesson coming up too, don't we? I wrote it down in my calendar.
I think so. I don't know when it is though.
Okay, I'll send you a thing about it, but yeah, so I'll send this over, and I'll see you in our next lesson. Okay, now how do I stop the record? Oh, there.